we started really early when we were saying, hey, like a member of the Nine is gonna die, and we want to see them. So like, let's figure out what it looks like.
And if it is the Lord of nothing, of every nothing.
That's a big question.
That was really funny because everyone's like, he just looks like a guy. Like, why is my dad Destiny? And it's like, you're gonna be excited, I promise.
We talked
The
about
Nine doing something overkill and flashy. What? Sorry.
What? Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and I would love for you all to introduce yourselves to the community. I have Abaddon on my top left, so I guess we'll just go from. Well, everybody's left's going to be different, so I'll call everybody out one by one. It's probably the easiest way to do it. So let's start with Abaddon. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the community. Let them know who you are, what you do, and where they can find you.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Abaddon. I do very long form analytical Destiny 2 lore video essays, I'd call it. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, X, and Blue Sky. Mainly most active on YouTube. You can see my stuff there. And yeah, so happy to be part of this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And to the right of Abaddon is Hannah. Hannah, would you please introduce yourself to everybody who either does know you or doesn't know you? Let them know what you do and what you're all about.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Oh yeah, go ahead, bye.
Yep. So sorry. People apparently are saying there is no audio from Abaddon. Just
interesting.
in the stream.
Okay, let's fix that super fast. No problem. Thanks for letting me know, everybody in chat. That's probably because your boy here forgot to include Discord audio. That would have been helpful from the start. So let's rewind this.
I forgot to share my Teams audio. We've all been there.
No worries, it happens. I knew I was going to miss one thing. There is too many spinning
it's inevitable.
plates. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's start again. Welcome everybody to the Edge of Fate lore panel, joined by a group of wonderful people who are all masters in their own craft. So they're going to go ahead and introduce themselves, because most of you just heard me speaking and didn't hear any of them speak. So Abaddon, please tell everybody again who you are, what you do, and where they can find you.
Hi, I'm Abaddon. I do very long form analytical Destiny 2 lore video essays on YouTube. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, X, and Blue Sky, but mostly active on YouTube. You can find my stuff there just under Abaddon. And yeah, I'm so happy to be a part of this panel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next, Hannah, would you please introduce yourself? Oh,
you're muted, Hannah.
Yep, Hannah and Nikko, you are both muted.
Welcome to the low-tech law stream.
Every time. It's gonna happen. All right, cool. Hey everybody, my name's Hannah. I am a narrative lead at Bungie. I have been at Bungie for about 3 years, so I've worked on the Edge of Fate, and I worked on the Final Shape, but I've been in the video game industry for 10 years as a writer and a narrative designer.
Amazing. We've got so many questions to ask you. And then to the right of Hannah is, you all know him well, Mr. Byf.
Hi there. Most of you decided that calling me Lore Daddy was a thing you wanted to do years ago, and I've regretted it ever since. I do Destiny lore content on YouTube, and I stream on Twitch. You can also find me on Blue Sky and Twitter.
Amazing. Thank you very much. For those of you who are interested, each person on the panel actually has their own exclamation mark command. So Byf has two. So one is exclamation mark Lore Dad, and then the other one is exclamation mark Byf.
Never gonna let that one go.
You know what? I
Never ever.
It.
Someone click it. No, and the same goes for Hannah and also Abaddon. If you exclamation mark Hannah or exclamation mark Abaddon, you will find their info will come up in chat and you can follow them wherever they go. So next we have a very special guest who has not graced the halls of Destiny for quite some time, but I'm excited to have her here. Many of you know her and probably recognize the little symbol of her, and that is Moonvald. Moonvald, please reintroduce yourself.
Yes. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've made content, but my name is Moonvald. You can find me on Blue Sky and YouTube. And I I haven't made anything for a long time, but usually my focus surrounding lore is regarding like esoteric and occult symbolism in Destiny, and kind of dissecting that. That's sort of my wheelhouse, like the meta lore of it all. It's very fun. Maybe I'll get back into it. Maybe this is the inspiration that I need.
Love it, love it. It's good to have you back, and yeah, I know I'm excitedly waiting to see what your next video is. So you're kind of trapped. You have to deliver now. Sorry.
I have to.
And last but not least is the wonderful Nikko. Nikko, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nikko. I'm a narrative lead at Bungie, and I've been there for about 6 years now. I started at the end of Shadowkeep. I've worked on a bunch of seasonal stuff. I worked on like Dawn up to Arrivals and Chosen and Splicer and Seraph and everything in between. Wish, Heresy, and Edge of Fate, and a little bit on Final Shape. So yeah, there's basically, if you've played Destiny in like the last 5 or 6 years, chances are you've played something that I worked on.
Okay, you dropped some absolute bangers. I mean, they're all absolute, but there are some that are like top tier, where the lore like really like sucker punched us in the guts. And yeah, I think Heresy was definitely one of those seasons. I'm sure many will agree.
Heresy is very close to my heart.
Okay, so we have some questions. Chat, I know that you guys will be like chomping at the bits to get questions. No exclamation mark drops does not work. I haven't set that up, so I'm kind of running giveaways the old school way. So I'll talk about that briefly. We'll go into some questions here first. We have like 3 really juicy questions, and then we'll take a quick break to do some emblem giveaways, and potentially we're also giving away some copies of the Edge of Fate, the standard edition, and then we have the Edge of Fate Collector's Edition for one lucky winner. So those are up for grabs. We also have emblem codes, and I'll probably get my singular mod to maybe like help me drop those in chat, because I can't do that at the same time. But we'll get into the questions first, and then we will do that. Okay, so our first question, and I guess it's polite to allow our guests to answer this question first, so that would be Nikko and Hannah, is what did Ikora go through after she died? How did she and Zavala meet? Is our question number 1 for you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nikko. Yeah.
Sure. So I think one thing that we've seen a lot of speculation on, that maybe we can put to bed right now is this idea of like, wait a minute, they didn't find Ikora's body for like hundreds of years. What's up with that? Well, what happened was when they hit her, when the 9 hit her with this interdimensional train, Ikora and the car that she was in basically got displaced from that position in time and moved forward to where she needed to be for Ophiuchus to find her. So that time span in between her death as Nella Davis and her resurrection as Ikora Ray, it's actually much shorter in terms of her corpse being there than you might think, because there was some 9 trickery going on. And then the second part of that question, Hannah, do you want to jump in for the Zavala Ikora?
Yeah. So in between Ikora being rezzed and like now a lot of that's kind of like somewhat filled in, and a lot of it's very like vague. We know that she was, I think, is like an iconoclastic warlock. Like she was rezzed very early on in the city, either in the City Age or before the City Age. And she, like, what we know of her is very limited, but we know that she probably met Zavala like at least like a few, like probably like a few years into her resurrection. When she would have made her way to the city, and they became friends from there. But we don't have any confirmation exactly on when they would have met. But they've been together for a very long time. They've known each other for a very long time, so we can assume that they met like quite early into her guardianship.
I think the only thing that we can kind of put some walls around here are there's a mention back in The Pigeon and the Phoenix, which is a lore book from the Season of Dawn, talking about how Osiris arrived at the city and like the first time that he met Saint, and the walls were being built at that point, and like Saint was already there, Zavala was already there. This is kind of a little bit into the city age. I think we can pretty cleanly say that Ikora arrived prior to that point, and was probably in the city already. Maybe had been around at the end of the Dark Age and fought some warlords, you know, gone toe-to-toe with some other light bearers before she showed up. But yeah, sometime around there. There's no like pinpointed date.
And I think like a extension of this question is probably like, hey, what about the dates in Destiny? Why aren't there like, hey, on August 28th, 2025, everybody got together for a lore panel? We have a very flexible history. It's not interesting for us to write stories about like on this date this happened, so that everybody can make that like clear timeline. We're telling a story, and we want you guys to have fun, like listening to the story, piecing the story together. But making the timeline isn't like what we want the focus of the story to be. So a lot of our dates are like, yeah, like Lodi is from the space age. We don't want to elaborate on like what exactly the date is because it's the space age. You can make some assumptions on that. So like it's similar to that. Destiny history isn't, and like Allison has talked about this a little bit. Destiny history isn't quite the same as ours. A lot of the dates line up, a lot of the times line up, like events line up, but it isn't going to be like one-to-one to like what human Earth in this dimension is.
Yeah. I want to build off that a little bit too, like just from the idea of like leaving things fuzzy in the past, especially when we're talking about a sort of post-apocalyptic like sci-fi fantasy world that's moving forward. One thing that's nice about having that fuzziness is it tends to preserve some of the mystery and the mystique of the Golden Age and of the pre-Golden Age, which is important to the characters in Destiny. It's something that kind of like drives them forward, not having a full understanding of the past and having to build rules for the future, and not always having something to like base that ideology off of. But another thing is, something I have seen is people saying like, what, we have no record keeping? I will remind people that the Earth got massively messed up during the collapse. And if you look back to civilizations, even just like Rome, right, which has writing and record keeping and archives, there's a ton about Rome that we don't know, or that we just found out because somebody was able to decipher like a tablet or a scroll of paper that they couldn't previously read. I think you could extrapolate a lot of the same ideas to the Golden Age and pre-Golden Age dates for Destiny.
Yeah, like the Library of Alexandria here, like that burned, and we lost so much of what like the ancient people had discovered. We knew that they were a lot more advanced than we think they are, but we have no idea because that library's gone and we don't have those resources anymore. And I mourn it every day. Every day.
I love that. Thank you guys for sharing that. Sorry, did I interrupt you, Moonvald?
No, I was just gonna say I think the kind of fuzziness of it all is part of why that cutscene with Ikora felt so effective, because it does kind of like put a familiar date attached to this character, like a time and place that we all would know. So bravo on that. It's jarring, but in a very, very good way.
Thank you. I hope so.
Yeah.
If I may ask kind of like an extension to this question as well, and this maybe is something which is defined well, or maybe it's something that isn't. We hear a lot of things about like different fire teams associated with previous Vanguard members. In particular, back in the final shape, there's a few words between Ikora and Cade where she talks about how they were supposed to be a fire team. And I just wanted to kind of ask, if possible, is that kind of a pinned down part of the narrative where they always a quote unquote fire team as well as being Vanguard mentors? Because we know that Cade also associates himself, or rather associated himself, with a few other figures in Destiny. Apparently I've been cut off. Wait.
Okay, let's get
No
that.
comms on this scene. Yeah, no comms on this scene is what everyone's saying.
Oh, okay. Let me hop back to that.
I'm going to hold my answer for you, Byf. We'll give it just a
Gotcha.
moment.
Yeah, I'll ask the question again. It's all good.
We're back. Sorry about that.
That's all good. So yeah, when it comes to the final shape, there is a moment between Ikora and Cade where basically she sits there and says, "We're a fire team." This, I believe, is near the blooming, near the replica of the Tree of Silver Wings. I guess my question is that a sort of codified part of the story of Ikora, Zavala, and Cade that they were a fire team? Because Cade, back in his past, also associated with several other characters who quite clearly he was close to. Andal Brask and Shiro 4, for example. It's apparently happening again.
Yeah,
I don't know what.
Oh no.
That's my apologies, chat. That's my fault. There's too many. I'm dropping spinning plates.
It's okay, but don't worry, you got this.
You all should be able to hear it now.
Okay. I was going to say, if it helps, I can restate the question before answering it too.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, Ikora, Cade, Zavala, properly codified fire team, like they said in the final shape, or just kind of like another fire team amongst many fire teams that they're all kind of interconnected with and joined to, right? Because, I mean, you know, Cade, Nandal, Brask, and Shurafora are also kind of a fire team, or maybe a hunter posse together. How is that codified in the law?
The way that I think about fire teams is that they are somewhat loose. You can go on an operation, and the people who are on that operation with you are your fire team, right? Like they're your squad essentially. But as you go on those operations, maybe you find people who you're really good at working with, or who you just enjoy being out in the field with. And those people can make choices to stay together or to deploy together and form like an actual rigid fire team that they recognize as being like their squad. And that would be something like, oh man, I hate to compare this to heist movies, but it would be like, oh, we're putting together a crew. And it's the difference on, going out and getting like 4 or 5 people and assembling them into a crew. And that's your fire team. They don't really know each other. Or, hey, I know a crew who does this kind of work, and I'm going to reach out to them. And that is a fire team that's set. So it's kind of both. Cade, Ikora, Zavala, that is a set fire team. They like working together. They have worked a whole bunch together, especially in their role as leadership members of the Vanguard. But Cade, like you said, has also been with other fire teams and done other work with people, especially because he's a hunter and he goes out a lot. Zavala and Ikora less so. I think normally when Zavala goes out, it's like an oversight situation, and then also when Ikora goes out, she tends to be alone or working alongside the hidden, and not so much with the fire team.
Kind of love that answer, right? It's like how we do it in the game,
Mm-hmm.
Like you have your posse. Oh, sorry, Moon, go for it.
No, you're good. Like Ocean's 11 versus like Snatch or something like that. Yeah.
I do have a question.
Who's your Brad Pitt?
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, sorry, I was just making a
joke. You mentioned that the train displaced Ikora, and in the campaign, Ikora mentions that she woke up in a desert. Do we know what desert that is?
We do.
Oh,
Hannah.
I don't think I don't actually know the desert, Nikko. If you do know the desert, go for it. But I don't. I didn't think that the desert name was important. But go ahead.
We haven't like said this, and I don't think we've actually pinned it down internally. But there were talks about this, where we talked about whether it was in Old Russia or in North America, because North America, which you also see in like Orin's lore, was ravaged, and it was very much turned into like deserts and plains land. Yeah. So we thought either there or maybe in Old Russia in the same place as the Guardian resurrected. There's a lot of like similar imagery there with what she was talking about, but we like to leave that stuff a little open-ended, which is why we didn't like immediately pin it down. But there's an idea of where it could be.
Gotcha.
And sorry, just to jump in a little, part of the reason why we like to leave stuff like that open-ended, and we've talked about this before a little bit in some of our other community panels or Q&As, it's this idea that you are many times handing the story forward to other writers, and you want to leave them opportunity to be able to expand upon ideas that maybe weren't necessarily important in the release that you put out before. So like, where exactly Ikora was resurrected, not super important to the story of Edge of Fate in terms of like a core piece of information, but maybe later on that open-ended, story point allows another person to come in and say, okay, well, actually, it was in North America, and here's why it's important. So leaving those little open-ended bits in the story is actually kind of like a team exercise to hand forward those points to people and allow them to like take them and run. Because you're not going to work on every single release, so you have to be able to build bridges and trust the writers that you're working with to be able to carry those story points forward.
Makes sense.
Love it.
One of those things of it may not necessarily be important to the story of Ikora in this moment, but if ever we go back and explore the story of her ghost Ophirkus in the past, then yeah, highly important, integral to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that would be really exciting to see, because I believe we had, this is years and years ago, but we had the little web comic, I think, that really featured Ikora and Osiris in like the early days.
Yeah.
And that kind of, it gave information, but still it was sort of like teasing the idea of what she was like before she became who she is now. So I love that we have like this long timeline of like pre-Guardian and then pre-Vanguard leader as well. And so it's interesting, like, I think hearing what 3 was saying to her in Edge of Fate.
Yeah, continuing that idea of leadership. She's always kind of had her hands on the wheel to some degree.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, I got you, Nico.
Go ahead. No,
hands on the wheel. No,
Hands on the wheel.
hands on the wheel.
Ikora, take the wheel.
This is a phrase we
Wait,
threw
power
around a lot.
culture.
Like
Oh,
during,
really? Okay.
during Edge of Fate development, is like, who has their hands on the wheel? Who's driving right now?
Yeah, who's
in the
driving the
passenger
car?
seat?
I love all the
Nobody's driving the
internal like languages you guys have come up with to describe different writing processes. It's really cool.
That stuff's really important as a team, just to like expand on it a little bit, because we're not just working together, like we're really close as a writing team. We work together all the time. We have writers' rooms really frequently throughout the week, so we can be like, you're just reevaluating, hey, like I wrote this thing, can we talk about it? And we get as many drafts as possible in, but we come up with that language also so we can explain it to the other disciplines. Like narrative isn't the only discipline who's making narrative choices. My hot take on game development is that everybody who works on a game is making a narrative choice. More or less, we're all telling a story together. And so when we come up with these like, hey, who's driving the car? Like that's a really easy phrase to tell to a designer who isn't as embedded in the emotional drive of the characters, but needs to know like what's kind of the vibe of this mission. So when we say those things, it is always in service of explaining to other disciplines, explaining to other folks like who aren't as embedded, like what's going on here. Having that shorthand is like extremely useful in the room to get everybody on the same page quickly. We're on a live service development schedule, so we all have to be like really in sync. So having those shortcuts is really useful and also fun. We're not the only people who come up with them. We will get them from other disciplines all the time. And it's really fun, like when we feel like we're making story choices all together at once.
That's so cool. I love that. I wonder if you can both speak to this a little bit, because I think it's a great opportunity that we have here to kind of talk about this stuff, especially the internal development process as the narrative team. I think that the public perception can sometimes be that nothing's happening. So could you give us an idea of like what it takes to, you mentioned getting in sync with one another. I think that's such an important process as a writer, because you all have a different creative flair, right? And a way that you like to express yourself in your writing. So how do you balance those tones together so that you can tell a good story in Destiny?
That's a great question. Okay, do you mind if I take a crack at this first, Hannah, and then jump in?
Please,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. So I want to answer this in two ways. The first one is everyone on the team, and really everyone is extremely skilled. And so when you're working with all of these different, very skilled writers, you know, the most important thing is that you are not writing your piece. You are not writing your script. You're writing Destiny. You're writing the release. And so together we build out a bunch of tent poles. Normally these kind of come from leadership discussions, but we build out some tent poles about like what plot beats do we absolutely need to hit? What character arcs are we absolutely trying to hit here? And then the discussion kind of opens up with the rest of the team where we can organically figure out like what is best for these characters, what is best for the storyline. Things develop over time in those writing rooms that Hannah was talking about. A lot of iteration on scripts and things like that. But also something that maybe people don't realize is that these stories are not created linearly. I think there's an assumption that like you start at the beginning and you write the intro and then you write linearly all the way to the end. And that's not really how it works, especially in game development, because there are different things that take different amounts of time. So for example, cinematics, vignettes, the in-game scenes that we call vignettes, where you see characters acting out a scene with each other. These things require a lot of lighting, a lot of staging, a lot of animation and rigging. And it takes quite a lot of time. So you tend to write these first, which means that you write the biggest, most important beats of your story first. And then the majority of the dialogue that actually comes from like those mission runs and the in-between sort of interstitial dialogue, that comes afterwards. So a lot of times you set down these tent poles and then you get this fun game of like, as stuff develops, does this cinematic still do what we wanted it to do 4 months ago, you know? And you have to kind of play this game of writing to what you had already established, but also if that's not the best story, maybe you can move it. Yeah, so we end up writing in chunks and then spreading the writing out from those chunks. And so having multiple people, to bring back to the original question, having multiple people all doing this at the same time, there's a lot of trust involved, and there's a lot of discussion between us before we start writing to make sure that we're all on the same page, and that at the very least we all have the same themes and tone and arcs in mind. And sometimes somebody writes something that you're not expecting, and it's just amazing, and you're like, okay, well, this is where the character's going. I mean, obviously, this is where the character's going now. And you kind of go back and readjust things to hit that point because something amazing came out in iteration. And that happens all the time.
And that flexibility is what makes game development very cool, of like when we can have like these revelations in like not halfway through, but like at any point through development and say like, whoa, hold on, like I think that this is actually what this character is supposed to be going through, like you said, Nikko. Like being able to have that flexibility. We talk about the best idea wins. We don't say like this is what's going to happen and it can never change. No one on the team is really like dictating. This is the plan and it can never fluctuate. It is always like, do we all feel good about this? And then if we come up with something better, let's go with that. Let's run with that and see where it goes. And a lot of the like successes of Edge of Fate, I think, came from us being like, well, let's just run with that. That seems awesome. So I want to make sure we can talk about lore. We can talk about game dev all, but it's like really exciting to like have these like being able to go through a development cycle with people you trust and being able to come up with this like weird, wacky stuff and be able to react to it. Everyone's so talented, man.
I want to throw one more thing in. Sorry, Byf.
No, just really quickly to interject, I wanted to just add a quick little thing of, I think it's very obvious and we can tell when you guys are feeling a bit more free to actually work on those narrative arcs. Like it comes through in the writing a lot, and it's very cool to see you guys clearly in that kind of liberated space. You know, that's probably one of the best things about Edge of Fate. It feels like it takes cool narrative decisions and then lets them unfold. So sorry, Nico.
Love to get weird with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a thing to say about that, but Nico, go ahead and I'll jump in.
Well, and that's the benefit of a new saga too, having like so much open space to start defining things and kind of change the way that people were thinking about the story. One thing I wanted to throw out as a point of comparison, because I feel like this helps people kind of understand the game development side of story. When you are making a film, a lot of times you will write the script either first, or if you're bad at it, you'll do it in the middle of the film, and then you'll iterate on that as you're making the film. But then eventually you're done shooting everything and you get into the editing room, and that is really where the movie is made. You make it in the editing room. Nobody goes and shoots a movie linearly and goes, that's it, we don't have to edit anything, this is all the scenes we need. So you have this special aspect of filmmaking where at the very end of the creation process you can determine how that story comes together. This is super different from making games. There is no editing booth at the end of the process where you can go, okay, let's put it together the way it should be now. You have to do it on the fly. It's very much building the tracks while the train is running. And so it requires you to, at each step of the way, verify that that is exactly what you want to do, because there are many points of no return where you will hit a place in your development cycle and it's like, okay, scripts are locked. We are not writing anything else. If something changes, the script is locked. So there's a huge difference between like these two mediums. I only brought that up because I feel like people understand that film process and they kind of assume that game making is the same, but it's very different.
Yeah, I guess
Sorry, I went off on a wild tangent.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. Abaddon, go ahead.
I guess I have another like game development type question where it's like, so the concept art of 3 came out this week, and it mentions how narrative works with the art department. I just wonder, how do you guys work together and develop something like 3, which is very Lovecraftian, eldritch? I love the design of 3. It's amazing. Like, how does that work? How do you guys work together?
Yeah, when we saw that concept art of 3, I think all of us gasped. We were like, oh my god, like, because you think about these things, and we spent a lot of time brainstorming and being like, what is a physical manifestation of a fourth dimensional being? How does the third dimension process what this thing looks like? Because it seems so inconceivable, and that's, when we talk about like in the genre of eldritch horror, it's like your brain isn't supposed to be able to comprehend this thing. So how do you translate that? And we do that by talking a lot with the artists. We have like almost, I think, weekly meetings with them where we're talking about like what's going on. But for 3 specifically, we started really early when we were saying, hey, like, a member of the night is going to die and we want to see them. So like, let's figure out what it looks like. And we give them some general like feelings. We give them a lot of like, well, we want it to feel eldritch. We want it to feel unknowable. But it's also, it is of Earth. It is influenced by humanity. So what does that feel like? And artists, we take that, like, where we let them take that and then they run with it. And they come back with some different vibes. I think there's one where it's the starfish that looks a little like squared off at the edges. That one's just so cool looking. But it's like these patterns and these shapes that I like. The artists, I don't know them off the top of my head, but the artists always like, they will talk to us about them and be like, well, here's what I was thinking with this. And that starfish kind of came out of that thinking of like, hey, well, this, an unknowable creature that has like 80 million genders is a starfish. So like, here, what that feels like, it could be potent here, and we loved it. And so letting people just like cook, for lack of a better word, like letting people just take the like vibe that we give them and run with it, and saying yes. And a lot of game dev is just improv of saying like, hell yeah. And taking that and letting that inform how we perceive 3. It's a self-feeding thing. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of just like, this is exciting to me, I'm going to take it and make it exciting over here, and you're going to take it and make it exciting over there. And therefore, yeah, Nico, go ahead. Did you have anything else you want to add?
That's a big part of game development. It's not just like a task comes down the line that says make 3 and then the artist does it, right? It's like I want to say there's probably 15 or 20 of us in those like writing and art meetings together, trying to figure out like what everything looked like. And really where that starts is just from excitement. It's either an artist or a writer coming in and saying, hey, this is an aspect of this release that I'm really hyped about. I'm going to share my excitement with you. And then, you know, one of the artists on the other side or one of the writers on the other side is like, oh my God, that's so cool. How do I make that cooler? How do I encapsulate that in my work? So the first few weeks of discussion are really just people nerding out about things they think are cool. And then a couple weeks later, you know, the artists come back and they're like, all that stuff we nerded out about, here's what we think it could look like. And they'll show us some concept art. And then we nerd out about that. And we talk about what we think is super cool, what we think, you know, maybe doesn't hit exactly what we were aiming at. And it's just that process over and over and over again. You know, a line of iteration until we hit the final result. And I think for 3, we talked about like the idea of whale falls a lot. We talked about we talked about the idea of what a creature would be like that could interact with multiple different points of space-time. And we also talked about oh God, it's escaping me now. It'll come back to me. But this idea of like starfish and crustaceans and lobsters being like, or crabs even being like this narrowing point of evolution, and how you have a lot of sea life.
Or something?
Yeah, carcinogen.
Carcinization.
Yeah. Become
We
crab.
all crab.
Yeah,
Yes.
become crab.
We all
Crab.
Trident Vice. Lord.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
say. That's awesome.
Hunters get some representation. Yeah.
I know.
I
I think
will
that's
allow
really.
it this once.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really fascinating. The physical manifestation of what 3 was gonna look like seeing the stages. Because I was like, as soon as I saw it was posted, I was like, oh, I'm all up in this. So I went to have a look, and I remember seeing a theory a while back that somebody had shared, and I can't remember where I saw it, but it was the idea that because the 9 are these really bigger than life beings, and I think that's kind of illustrated in like the early concepts for 3. Just this idea of like, I'm trying to think of the PG way to say way to say this, but there's aspects of the way that 3 ended up looking that kind of looks like an eyeball, and the tendrils being like the connective veins that attach to the eyeball. And I just love that it's this whole idea of like, they're so massive in the 4th dimensional plane, like only part of them could be pulled through, you know, and that's kind of why they couldn't survive, because they've lost a limb or something like that. But yeah, I thought that was really exciting.
Challenge of visually representing like the manifestation of interdimensional consciousness. That's such a huge task. It's really impressive. They all were able to pull that off so well.
Kudos to the team.
I also
huge,
gasped.
huge,
Yeah.
huge kudos to the art team. They did such a great job with it. It looks, the first time I think I saw it, I was like, no, like that's what it looks like in the game. Like remember us playing through it, like when we were just like play testing stuff on our own, and
When we hit
like
that first
walked
bit.
out into that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're like, what?
Yeah.
This is what it like. It's so big. It's like, because you see concept art and you see like, hey, you know, you see images that folks are posting in teams. Like you're looking at this stuff and you're like, that's awesome. That's so cool. And it cannot replicate how that feels to walk around in a game, which is what's so fun about the medium.
It's very much the meme of like banana for scale, where it's like you're playing it or you're seeing it in chat, right? And you're like, oh, that looks really cool. Okay, great. And then you'll go and you'll do the playtest and you'll see it for the first time in the skybox and you're like, holy hell, that's amazing. I cannot believe it looks that cool. And yeah, I think we were all kind of breathless when we first walked out into that vista in the finale mission.
Credit where it's due, not just to art, but also to you guys for coming up with obviously it's a whole team endeavor, but whoever came up with the nine can't exist here, like we can't exist in a painting, I think that's such a brilliantly succinct way of describing a dimension squish where you go down one dimension, right? So, brilliant too.
Nikko, do you want to talk about? Oh yeah, no, sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. I'm good. I'm done. I'm good.
I was going to ask Nikko, do you want to elaborate on that with Dr. McTeer?
Yeah, so we actually met with a physicist to kind of explain some concepts of the fourth dimension to us, and also concepts around dark matter. I think a lot of people on the team are pretty nerdy to begin with, and have like a cursory understanding of these things, but it was fantastic to have an actual scientist come in and give us real concrete information about how this could function. And we actually took a lot of that to heart, and everything that the nine do currently has an explanation in real physics. There's nothing that they do that cannot be done with physics right now, or at least that we think can be done with physics right now. So we pulled a lot of that information, and especially that also went into how we described 3 coming into the third dimension, and part of how it looked too. There was this idea that we wanted to make sure people understood why the 9 can't exist here. Because this question kept coming up in our discussions with other disciplines and within the writing room as well. We needed a succinct way to tell people, like, yeah, fourth dimensional beings just can't be here. It's you're what are they called? You're like a deep sea blobfish that's being brought up to the surface, and you're de-blobifying. I think that's the imagery that we started with, and then the painting imagery, the canvas imagery was much more elegant, and we went with that instead.
And when we were talking with Dr. McTeer, the question was like I think the first question we had for her was like, what does a fourth dimensional being do? And then like the quote that I had like written down from her was like, a fourth dimensional being can manipulate time like we can manipulate a piece of paper. So like when we're talking, like I've seen there's a YouTuber also who explains this really well, but it's like she has like an illustration of a 2D chalk drawing and a girl with like a box, and the 2D chalk drawing has like the box, and there's like a precious item inside the box, and me, a third dimensional person, can just reach inside that box, and she'll have no concept of me reaching in through a third dimension and pulling out the precious item from her box, because her box hasn't changed and there's nothing different about that. So like explaining the amount of scientific like learnings that I have experienced throughout working on this game is so much fun. But like, yeah, get that like explanation really helped us understand like where the limitations of the Nine's power would be, and like how they manipulate time and how they would affect the lives of the characters. It's nice to be able to explain that to people in a way that feels simple.
Isn't there a novel called Flatland, I believe, kind of about the same concept, where they're like these two-dimensional creatures and interacting with the third dimension and kind of just going from the top down? Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's from like the 1800s, I think. It's like a super old one.
Yeah. A way of thinking about like how the Nine kind of view the third dimension from the fourth dimension is if you had like a bird's eye view of I think I was kind of talking to Hannah about this the other day. Like if you have a bird's eye view of a deck of cards, right? You've got 52 cards down. Let's imagine that those 52 cards are like the major beats of history, or the major beats of a timeline. Those are spread out linearly. Whoops, that's my camera moving. Those are spread out linearly from 1 to number 52. And the Nine see every single card. Even if the present is on card 33, they see card 34 onward. And they can take a card from before 33 and move it ahead, right? And that's fine, because they've essentially just created a new linear future that doesn't really break anything. Whereas if you take a card from after that present point and you put it in the past, well, now you have completely changed all the events that lead up to the current present time, which is basically what the Vex do and move into a parallel timeline. So that's like one of the reasons why the 9 were not able to give Maya what she wanted. They couldn't do it in this timeline. So if you kind of think about it from that top-down view, it I don't know, it helps me visualize how the 9 can interact with us.
Yeah, I guess another way I've been visualizing it is I remember back last year you guys were talking about the inspiration behind Jaffe. You mentioned Slaughterhouse 5, and I went and read it, and it talks about how the fourth dimensional beings in that novel see it as like a mountain range, which is also very interesting. And I think we kind of see that reflected in the Edge of Fate as well, which I thought was really awesome. Like in that final arena, when you look back at Kepler, it's kind of like
Yeah.
that perception of 3, how 3 kind of sees Kepler, and it's kind of like spread out like that. And I thought that was just awesome.
Yeah.
I am so glad that someone caught that. I think you're the first person to bring that up.
Oh,
Awesome.
there is. I mean, if we had like 6 hours, this like we'd be talking this
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure all of us have like all these little anecdotes in our head of things that we've picked up on from like reading the lore that you and the team have written and what we've played through in Destiny itself. And I think the conversation is always going on in terms of like, what does this mean? And hey, remember that thing from D1? Like they just mentioned it in recent lore. What does that mean? So it's always really exciting to like experience what you've written and also like I think I made a joke about this once about how writers always like to leave things for their readers to laugh at, and I feel like Destiny always has a lot of those things where it's like whether it's a flavor text on a weapon or like a lore book, there's always that little something that's been left for that person who can find it if they're really good at picking up on the breadcrumbs.
We love our little jokes, our little hidden jokes.
So okay, we are at the top of the hour. We do have a whole bunch more questions to get through, but I figured I'd bring this up a little bit sooner because people have been asking in chat about asking the narrative team some questions. I'm sure people have questions for our panelists as well in terms of Abaddon, Moonvald, and Byf, but we'll give our guests the first pick. So we had one question earlier, and I'm going to do my best to fix this. Big shout out to Shutterfinch who's in the chat pinning questions for me so that I don't have to scroll super far for them. But somebody asked a question and they said, seeing as you've mentioned the art and how the narrative team work together, what is the process that the narrative and audio team, mainly music and sound effects, collaborate? Like how does narrative and audio collaborate together?
Yeah. It's similar in that like a lot of the way we start to talk to them is meetings. We get together, we sit in a room, and we say, hey, here's the story we're telling. Here's the vibe of this. Here is some inspiration that we've taken. We sometimes will use media comps as like the jumping off point. But we talk about, hey, I think we want to hear what these things sound like. So example was like when we first got together, it was like, hey, we have this group of humans, this faction, the Ionians. And we're going to use this new tech, which we call NTBs, narrative text boxes. We're going to use this new tech with them, but we don't want to walk up to them and have it be silent. We want to hear a language. And the first discussion I remember having with them was like, what does a human who has been so far removed from humanity for hundreds of years, who also wears like adaptive, technology on their face for the environment, like what does that human sound like? How has that language evolved? And I'm not sure where we came up with this, but we were really interested in this being kind of musical. And it feeling like a theremin was the first kind of like comp that I made to, or like we were, as the team was talking, like we're like, hey, let's like, what if it sounded like a theremin kind of? I don't know. And so the audience team was like, oh, that sounds awesome. Let's poke around with theremins, and there's a French synthesizer. Nikko, do you remember what it is? There's like a French synthesizer that someone on the
I don't
audio
remember
team
what
was
it's
talking
called.
about, and they were like, okay, I'll have to, if I remember it, I'll like post it in chat. Or I'll tweet about it. But it's like, it was the coolest thing. It was
Yeah.
extremely awesome. It was like from the early 1900s, like 1800s in France. But it was like this concept of an instrument. But they were like, hey, how does this sound? And we were like, that's amazing. So we kind of had this back and forth. We will get together, like we'll all go away, we'll keep writing. The audio team is like, we're going to brainstorm what this could sound like. And then we'll come back together and say like, hey, this is the things that we put together, and we'll do feedback from there. We'll say like what sounds really cool, what's sounding awesome, where we want to clarify, what we want, like if we want to push it in a different direction. And we do that with everything. So like the Archon's voice design, we did that with his voice design. Brad Davidorf did an incredible performance as the Archon, but we wanted to have that extra treatment of like, gotta make that's it. So Moon, do you actually want to talk about it?
I don't know
What you
anything about it. I
just
just was Googling.
Yeah,
Thanks, Moon.
the Ondes Martineau, I think is how you pronounce that. On Martineau. That's how you pronounce it. Okay. French, yeah, early electronic music instrument. It's so cool. They play like they sent us a bunch of videos of like people playing it. I was like, what? The theremin is awesome. This thing is also awesome. It's so cool. So but anyway, Brad Davidorf did a fantastic job as a performance, but we wanted to add a little extra layer on top, as we do with a lot of our Elixir voices. And so they went away. They were like, okay, where does he fit in our Elixir roster of characters? How do we make his voice feel distinct? And pitching, from there, what makes this guy sound different? He's sipping on that dark matter. So how does that change his voice? How has it changed any of the Elixir there? And that having that collaboration is like always just like a back and forth. Nikko, do you want to talk about soundtrack stuff and like when you talk with them about score?
Score comes from a few different places. I mean, obviously there's an open discussion, much like with sound effects and stuff like that, like what Hannah was just talking about. But there's also influence based on the themes of a release or combatants even. Like if you're fighting, Elixir for an entire release, we're going to be using a lot of touchstones of Elixir themes and bringing them back, so that as you're running through those combat zones, you're like, oh yeah, we're fighting Fallen again. That's what this is. So there's influence from the past. There's influence from the tone and theme of a release, and then these meetings. I think also with Edge of Fate, if I remember correctly, because the title screen was pulling from like original D1 music, there was a lot of discussion in terms of the Ionian speech around the music of the spheres, because that was a huge influence on the original Destiny theme. And we had this long discussion of these people who were like so based in the scientific method that had almost become a religion for them, and it had dictated a lot of the ways in which they live their lives.
I have so many thoughts and feelings about this.
We want to hear those. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So sorry.
I'll wrap up real quick. So I want to hear what you have to say. But this music of the spheres idea kind of carried forward into their linguistics. It's this sort of, because the music of the spheres is very mathematical in the way that it's put together, and the Ionians are very mathematical in the way that they think about a lot of things. I mean, these are like astrophysicists essentially. So that was a big cross point and touchstone as well, like bringing forward that idea of the music of the spheres into these people's speech patterns.
We listened to a lot of prog rock early on in development. I feel like it was a lot of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, a lot of King Crimson, the whole playlist of stuff that I shared with people. It was like, it's good.
Math rock. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I could touch on it. I don't want to get like too in the weeds about it because it's really dense. Byf knows.
This is a lore conversation. We're in
respectfully, we're here for the weeds. Get in the weeds.
Yes, thank you. Well, I mean, Byf and I met on a project that was based on Music of the Spheres, like pre-Destiny 1 release, like the poetry that Malcolm Geet, I think was his last name. Is that?
Yes.
Um,
Trying to remember their handle, but I know which project you're
yeah,
talking about.
yeah. But yeah, I, as somebody who grew up around like Hermeticism and Gnosticism and like Freemasonry and like all this sort of stuff, it's things that I've been exposed to my whole life that I'm seeing reflected in Destiny. And man, where do I even begin? Reading, I think what was that lore book? Epochs, and let me go look at it.
Epochs and Orbits. Yeah.
Yes.
Epochs and Orbits, yes. And kind of hearing how each of the 9 speak and sort of how that reflects kind of the personalities of the planet as they're seen in like, again, Hermetic astrology and such, like seeing how the sun is like kind of egotistical when the sun represents ego, and how Saturn is a little bit barbaric when, you know, Saturn is like the great limiter, the thing that controls time. Jupiter speaks with a really big voice, and again, the Jovian planet. It's seeing through the threads for me a lot of the time, and I feel like it's been really hard for me to kind of synthesize that, and that's why I haven't made anything since Season of the Haunted about like all the Jungian psychology and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to touch on one point, but it's really cool to kind of see that reflected in the narrative, as much as I can deign to. Like a lot of it's just speculation because obviously I can't really prove a whole lot of it, but yeah.
I mean, for Epochs and Orbits at least, I can tell you like you nailed it there. And there was also a big influence of like, I wrote that lore book, and I listened to sure.
It's beautiful.
Really good.
Yeah.
Great book.
It's my favorite one from this DLC for sure.
Oh, thank you. A lot of I feel compelled to say a lot of iteration from the team, a lot of feedback from people too. So not just me. It's never a single person doing it.
Oh but... yeah. No, when I say y'all, when I say thank you, it's the royal you for sure. Yeah.
But fun fact about that lore book, a lot of the actual description about the feeling or the sound, the perception of the way the 9 are speaking, those sort of like descriptive paragraphs prior to the actual dialogue, that came from like hours of me just sitting there and listening to how planets sound over radio waves and other types of signals, and then trying to translate that into prose.
That's awesome.
It's like that's a really big thing, especially for the gas giants in particular. Like Jupiter's radio signal is really quite appropriately overwhelming, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, I was doing this at like 1 a.m, which is a bad idea because a lot of those sounds are actually quite unsettling if you're listening to them. Yeah, in like a dark room with no one around you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like again, you know, the theme of sort of the macrocosm and the microcosm. It's the planets, the consciousness of the planets versus sapient life, humanity, all that fun stuff.
I'm going to throw this out there. If you don't make this video about your take and perspective on esotericism and the 9 and their personalities, I'm going to be mad at you.
Listen, my friend. I'm still trying to break down what's happening in the Sunken Pyramid. What happened in Witch Queen? What's going on? It's so much, and life has been clobbering me. But I really do. I'm very passionate about it. I would love to pick that up again.
Yeah,
that's fair enough. I'm really excited to see it.
Thank you.
I love seeing how like occult stuff appears in Destiny because I could talk about how Destiny and Nazism like intersect, so I could go on a tangent. So I just love seeing that. I need to see this video. It's awesome.
Yes. I will do my best. How about that? I will try a little bit harder. This is inspiring to be invited to this for sure. So I will use it.
Chad is saying they're going to hold you to this, Moonvald. So
okay.
You have accountability now.
Oh no. I'll do what I can.
We have a couple more questions from. Please forgive me if I butcher your name. Asterius. says, do the Ionians or the 9 symbols have any ties to the Elantarians from the book Elantaris? I think I pronounced that right. Elantris?
Not that I'm aware of.
Lantrians?
No?
I don't think so. I think if I recall correctly, that's a Sanderson novel, right?
I think so. Vaguely rings a bell. I've never read it
Uh,
myself.
Yeah, I can't say, at least personally, no. And I didn't hear that ever brought up when we were talking about them.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Next question was curious to know how you came up with the iconography for each of the 9, and did the voice association affect that? That was from, oh my goodness, Zarth Guardian?
We reached out to there was a graphic designer who basically started a conversation with us, and we had reached out to them because we were talking about needing like multiple 9 symbols rather than just the 3 that we had, and also like the overarching symbol for all of them. And there was a lot of discussion about like who these entities were and how they viewed the world, and I I can't speak for the designer, but a lot of the information that we gave them about like who these characters were did definitely seem to influence the shapes of those symbols. And I know that they also pulled from uh, solar system models to try and influence some of that as well.
It was solar system models, and it was taking each of the 3 existing like iconographies or icons that we had and extrapolating, like pulling them apart and saying like, so each of the 9 symbols has like a shape from those 3 icons. And then I think there's some additional stuff on there, but like, yeah, he did take all of those shapes and like pull them into separate ones. And then I forget, I think if I'm remembering correctly, it's also like the amount of lines in them are also like akin to a member of them, like yeah, akin to the
Yeah.
planet that they represent. So yeah, there's a ton of thought. I think this is Jacob, if I remember. He's incredible. A ton of thought went into him making these, and he did such a great job.
I literally looked through it and wrote the observations for a video on this the other day. It's the number of straight lines is the member of the 9, with the exception of 9,
That's
which is 2 circles and a straight line through, which apparently represents 9, which maybe is inner orbits and outer orbits is each of the sort of circles. But yeah, it's so cool because you can literally just count the lines and tell. It's like the symbol has had clearly a lot of thought put into it for every member of the 9. It's so good.
Yeah, I think
We
I
all
think it's
do that
really
in my
interesting. It makes sense too, because I feel like it ties really well into like even the iconography and symbolism we had from like early D2 year 1, and when we had stuff like Trials of the 9, and then obviously we had the Crucible map that was full of there's quite a lot of symbolism in terms of like circular shapes and like alignment of planets. And there's just so much mystery about the 9 that is that everybody's excited about. But follow-up question to that is somebody named, sorry, I'm going to butcher this name, Mercy88 is interested to know about 4 and how the power of the if 4 has the power of the Taken. And if it is the Lord of nothing, of every nothing. I mean, kudos to trying, man.
That's a big question.
It's a huge question.
I'm gonna just be very sly about that answer, I guess, and say that currently 4 has not shown any prowess over the Taken outside of what the 9 are able to do already by spawning Taken. But in the lore, we've talked about how the Taken that the 9 spawn are like manufactured. They're not real Taken. But other than that, nothing has been surfaced.
It is a great observation, though, of the things that exist on the 9's planets influence their sapient. Like the sapient things that exist on planets influence each member of the 9. So yeah, we'll be sly about it, but it is great that you guys are thinking about that, and it's cool to see.
Oh, the Lord of Every Nothing, I think, is like one of the biggest, if not the most talked about topic in lore currently, because everybody's like, who's the next big bad? Like, who's going to be the taken leader?
It's exciting stuff.
Maybe.
To pull it into interesting places, I would sit there and say read epochs and orbits again, and maybe look at 6, not 4. That's where some very interesting, cool things come along, right? Where there's all sorts of things about ascendant orbits and, learning things from the will that makes itself.
Yep.
Yeah. Very
He does
exciting.
some yelling, yeah.
I'll say this much: keyword ascendant. That's all I'm saying.
There's a lot of
Transcendency and
really good words in there.
ascendancy. The most important themes in this game right now, in my opinion.
Yeah. To pull it back briefly to 4 though, I do love the way that they've been written in epochs and orbits, because they've got this brilliant kind of like, because they're in all caps, it's very immediately obvious that there's a lot of passion behind their voice, but I think it's very easy to misconstrue that as anger or wrath, because I'm also Mars, god of war, but I think it is actually just passion, right? They talk a lot about how they are sort of nurturing the remnants of a stillborn member of the Nine, aka the asteroid belt, aka Zero, which is also mentioned in epochs and orbits. They talk about the death of 3. I'm very interested in what happens when we finally get to know 4 better in particular, because I think that they're one of the members of the Nine that, for one, seems like they're more cooperative than others, and doesn't necessarily have an agenda that is as obfuscated. Like, we know that 1 and 2 are the inner orbits and they're trying to help us, and the same with 9, but like, we don't really know what they want. We don't know what their objective is. But with 4, it seems very straightforward and not necessarily blunt, but like, it's your friend who is an advocate and will loudly tell someone to, off if someone is being really mad at you, Like,
He said no pickles.
He
Exactly.
said no pickles. Yeah, Mars, again, in astrology, in the philosophy of astrology, Mars is the planet of action and doing and motion. So like it makes sense.
Yeah, I guess I'll speak to that a little bit. There's a line at the end of Mars's chapter in Epochs and Orbits, and I'll paraphrase if I don't get it exactly right. It's something like in the shadow of grief, or in grief, I care not for rules, something like that. And it kind of encapsulates how they feel. They're very much this sort of grieving party of the Nine, where they see the death of 3, they see the potential of 0, and they recognize the importance of life, much like 3 did, in a way that is more connected than the other 9 probably do. And part of this is in some way because that's where the Traveler touched down when it originally came to Sol. That was the first place that humanity sort of expanded into with any seriousness outside of Earth. So there is some kind of, we talked about earlier how the sapience or the sentience that is on one of these planetary bodies can affect the 9 that is developing there. And how they kind of mirror or reflect some of these ideologies of the sapients that are living on them. So as humanity spreads to Mars and the Golden Age happens, there's definitely this feeling of like inclusivity with like Mars and Earth and the Traveler, that they're all kind of working in this sort of ecosystem together. And then when 3 dies and Mars is kind of alone, it's like this partner that they've had got ripped away from them. And imagine how that would feel to a being who can see forward in time and knows that their best friend is going to die horribly. And it's just going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. So they kind of have this tragicness to them, and that passion comes through a lot. Like they want to act, like you were saying. They're the planet of action. They want to do something. And it's that line between like, how do you do something when you can't directly interact with a lot of the physical world?
That's great.
Could the same be said? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
All right. I was just going to ask, could the same be said for 8 and Neomuna? Is it kind of a similar?
It definitely has influence. And actually, I think in the Epochs and Orbits lorebook, you see that 8 is kind of fence sitting and is kind of like, well, I don't really know.
And talking
if,
about altered reality and
Yeah.
stuff like that too, which is reminiscent of the cloud.
One direct impact that I'll say that it had, just because this comes from old lore, is like the Outers very much wanted to escape through some means of either a singularity or some way that they would be able to escape the gravitational hold of their planets, right? Whereas the Inners are more concerned with like figuring out if they can do this via the light. At least in the past, that's kind of been their motivations in the lore. So when you look at 8, and in that chapter, 8 is kind of saying like, well, I don't know if escape is really the best option now. Like, look, I've got this huge bubble of sentience on my on my world. The Neo Mooney are here. Seems pretty good for me, actually. I don't know about the rest of you guys. So they kind of get to, yeah.
It's unbind plus reality, right? Is the line, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really interesting that you bring that up, because obviously it's like hinting at grander themes. I think the idea of the 9, or should we say 10, but we'll get to that in maybe another video, is just this idea that there are these planets that have become intelligent. One of the questions that was asked by Dread AFK, he said, did the 9 have any hand in the Traveler coming to Sol? And if so, do the 9 know of the Traveler's origins?
Y'all can't touch that without a 10-foot pole.
Two of the biggest questions ever, but yeah, I'll defer to you guys.
Okay, Hannah, how do we deftly sweep around this question?
I'll say what I said before. Like, it's a great observation that these things know about each other and they interact in specific ways, and that these cosmic beings exist on a level that we don't understand. Maybe that's something that we talk about. Maybe that's something that we'll get to. But it's like the 9 know a little bit more than we may think that they know. The 9 know much more than we as humanity could possibly know. So I think the assumption that they understand the Traveler differently is super valid.
I think we also say in Edge of Fate that the 9 in Sol predate the Traveler's arrival. And if that's the case, and they exist prior to the Traveler arriving, it stands to reason that their 4th dimensional sight would allow them to see the Traveler's arrival and understand the impact that it would have, and plan around that.
Kind of frightening to think about how like the Witness is like small potatoes compared to all of this grand design or whatever it's called in the narrative.
I wasn't going to say it.
Correct?
But...
Yeah. Crazy stuff.
And they knew how the Witness would pan out, so they were like,
yeah,
the Guardians got this.
You got it.
If you think about these 4th dimensional beings just sitting back, and they're like, we're gonna let all these paracausal guys just slug it out until they're done, and then we'll do our stuff. Also, my dog has joined us in the blur.
Yes.
Oh, excellent.
Welcome, Nikko dog.
I saw a curly tail.
I will unblur so that people can see the dog.
10 out of 10. Oh,
little baby.
It's a win.
Oh, sweet little one.
That's Paprika.
Oh, that's a 10 out of 10 name for that dog. Oh my gosh.
To what you just said, like, I think you said some really big stuff there, because I know Moonvald just mentioned the idea that the Witness is like, it's like a fly on the wall, right? In terms of this grand scheme of cosmic, what do we call it? Like dynasty or like tier system. And I know that we had a question kind of touching on this, and I know that you probably can't answer it, but I think from the Edge of Fate perspective, if I'm understanding it correctly, it's like paracausality in terms of the light and the darkness are not entirely different from dark matter, but they operate under different principles, I guess. Almost like two different chemicals that don't necessarily work together, at least until we had prismatic. Prismatic, I think, has kind of changed this, like the merging of light and darkness. So I guess my question is kind of, is there a hierarchy between them, or are they just two different power sources existing within the same universe?
Yeah, in Edge of Fate, we talk about dark matter and darkness are not something that are connected. There are forces in the universe, and they interact with each other based on what's happening in the moment. Like the context is important. So sometimes, yeah, there can be a reaction. Sometimes these forces are going to have this like rippling effect that goes everywhere, and sometimes they are neutral and they do not interact. And just much like the way that our universe operates, in that sometimes these things do collide and sometimes they don't. Nikko, I don't know if you have anything to add to that one.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that there's like a hierarchy necessarily. They're just different. Like one isn't necessarily more powerful or better than the other. They interact with different aspects of reality, right? So light it interacts with like the physical aspects of reality. Darkness interacts with
consciousness.
the consciousness,
Yeah.
the mental aspects of reality. But both of these things are still bound by reality. And I'm not using that word coyly or for like some special reason. And the nine, like we talked about earlier, they're also bound by reality in the sense that they work through physics and like the quantum realm and the fourth dimension. These powers can interact with each other, like we saw in Edge of Fate, where our paracausal ability allowed us to kind of mold dark matter or shape dark matter and utilize it for like matter spark and mattermorph. But I wouldn't say that one is necessarily more powerful than the other.
So in that respect, I guess it's kind of like they're tools, and I know some really old lore kind of like touches on that note, where I think there's like a pacifist colony of light users, but they use their light for healing. Is that kind of...
Yeah, I think the ways in which we see people use light in the game, in respect to gameplay, could probably be thought of as like gameplay limitations to some degree. It's not that like those subclasses and the grenades and melees are the only way that you can manifest the light. There's a bunch of instances in the lore where people use light to do utilitarian things, like they'll flick a pebble of light that's hardened to like hit a button across the room or something like that, because they can manifest physicality with it. Or even thinking about like the Titan's barricade, right? That's not like a super special application necessarily. They're just creating a wall of light pressure. So yeah, I think that Guardians can definitely use the light in ways that we don't specifically see in gameplay. And a lot of that's kind of up to their imagination. I'm going to compare it to like Adam Eve in Invincible. Her powers are limited only by her imagination and also the limiting stuff that they put in her brain.
Are the emotes canonically light? Like if you have like the
Yes.
pizza box emote, like did we manifest like are we manifesting the pizza box and the like fire around?
It depends on who you ask. I think canonically, if we had to say yes or no, yeah, those are manifestations of the light that you're totally capable of doing that as a guardian. As far as like in the game, we kind of hesitate to call cosmetic things canonical, so we'll just draw the line there.
Sometimes things
But
are just
Reddit's-
because of video
Reddit's-
game, right?
Reddit's
Well, that's
flipping tables right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, have fun with that one. Yeah, but we also like canonically like at the end of Edge of Fate, the Guardian takes a healing grenade and slams it into Lodi after he gets like hurt after kind of like having dying free inside of him. So like, yeah, we want to like exploring those applications is fun and cool when we get the chance to do it. But like Nikko said, a lot of limiting factors for gameplay.
Write that
Just
fan
another
fiction.
example.
Community.
Just another example, like in some older lore, there's a piece that that one of our leads wrote like a long time ago, where it's Shax and Felwinter. I think this was back during the season of the Worthy, and they place like a burning maul or a burning axe. I can't remember exactly what the scene is, but they place like a burning maul or a burning axe down, and it warms this whole castle for days and days. And that's just like their solar light keeping people warm so they don't freeze to death. So there are a lot of different applications. The subclasses and the abilities you see are kind of like avenues that are easily taught to guardians.
Scratch on the coin.
I
Yeah.
think one of my favorite descriptions of it is kind of, I think it's Wei Ning who describes how she canonically had this, always didn't vibe with void light, and said, I get the concept of like trying to form the impassable wall around yourself, creating the shield, creating the bubble, but I get really mad, or something akin to that, and I just know that I'm going to get this done faster if I just punch things in the face like I'm really good at doing. You know,
It's so real for that.
Titan
yeah,
mentality.
no, 100%. Yeah, 100% Titan. Gah, poor Wei Ning.
I love you, Wayne.
Okay, let me get through a couple more questions. We have a lot of questions coming in. I know we can't answer them all, everybody in chat, but we appreciate you dropping them in.
I'll try and be less long-winded.
No. We
That's what we're here for.
appreciate the expansive detail. This is what this panel is all about. So we have a question from. Okay, good grief. Sorry, I'm getting. I have to scroll all the way back up. That's a really good question too. Okay, I'm just gonna have to cherry pick. I don't know. Something happened in chat and it just pushed like everything down to the bottom. This is terrible. Okay, so why did the 9 decide to kill Ikora with the train from the wormhole instead of maybe a heart attack? Seems very overkill and flashy. That was from Dread AFK.
You already kind of answered that, yeah, when you talked
The
about
9 doing something overkill and flashy? What? Sorry.
What? Yeah.
the
But
mentioning
yeah,
how it displaced her.
yeah, exactly. Like it was. I think maybe this seems like a cop out, but the easy answer for like why the 9 did something in a specific way is because that's the way that it had to be done in order for events to unfold as they wanted them to. So Ikora had to be moved. And you know, you hit someone with the train, it's a pretty effective way to move them.
Pretty effective way to kill them, move them.
Mhm.
A lot of things.
Also, it's there's some visual metaphor in there about the idea that not only is it like a Chicago L train, and that's, you know, thematically connected to a lot of things, but just the visual metaphor of like this locomotive that is a symbol of industry and motion and movement and advancement. That is the
Liminality.
thing. Yeah, and liminality. Like that is the thing that is
Liminality,
killing
mhm.
her and bringing her forward.
Yeah, the train I think was an early imagery thing that we had talked about. And when you said like the liminality of it and time does not feel real on a train, I think there's a Lodi line that may have gotten cut, but there was like he was like, I have said on a train that I do think that time doesn't exist on them. And having that be a fun visual metaphor. There's also the juxtaposition of Ikora getting killed or Nella getting killed by a train, and then Ikora in the beginning of Edifate just like dodging it easily. No, like she like the like difference in people in power and getting to like overcome a train in that way, like just being like, this is chill, was something that felt really like a really cool like moment to have for Ikora specifically.
That we are getting so much Ikora.
I'm so glad that we're getting more Ikora.
That's my mom.
Underrated character for so many different reasons, but like, yeah.
I feel like she's been the anchor point for Destiny in a number of ways, not just in the Vanguard or like for the last city, but I think just as a character, she has a way of and I think that came across in Edge of Fate. Like she has a way of even in the midst of chaos, grounding herself and helping to ground everybody else that's with her. And obviously, spoiler alert if you haven't played Edge of Fate to the end, but like that moment of approaching the anomaly and seeing what's going on, and then obviously the cutscene at the end, she's, even despite learning what she's learned, so calm still, despite everything that's going on.
I
You know,
don't care what
whereas-
happens, and I'm still Ikora Ray.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's that
Whereas
moment.
somebody like Zavala would have been either banging a table or potentially flipping a table.
Yeah, there's that. There's
we
that
wanted to
moment. Oh,
still.
sorry.
Oh,
Or,
yeah,
I
go
was gonna
ahead.
say, there's like that moment in right before the final mission in Criticality where everything's going wrong and she's under the reactor and dies over and over again, and then gives that speech claiming her free will. I just love that so much.
Yeah, it's a 9-1 Ikora Ray. Then here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really important to give her something that like shook up her arc. She is the anchor point. She is always the person who we can rely on to be calm, and giving her something that would challenge her. Like we've talked about in the past, but it's like when we were figuring out who we wanted to be part of Edge of Fate and who would be like who the 9 would be messed with. An important question came up. It's like, who would be the most upset that they got messed with, right? Like, who would be so angry that their life was controlled? And it's Ikora, who has so much control over everything, and knowing that she didn't have control over this is like infuriating, but it's also a way to push her forward, to not to take away that agency in the moment, but to give her more agency in the future, and to let her figure out who she's going to be. She got called commander. That's like extremely like that's an extreme identity crisis to come through of like, well, Zavala's the commander, like who am I? And letting her feel there she has that ghost phone after the cinematic where she learns the truth. Like, she has a ghost phone where she talks about the difference between her and Nella, and she's like, I'm not that woman, but that woman was alive and I'm grieving her, and I am really upset that this happened. And she kind of like leaves for a minute, and we didn't get to like spend time with her while she was off meditating or thinking about like, what this means for her as a person. But I like can see her going through it and then coming back and being like, okay, I have some amount of centering. I know what I'm going to do forward, but that has still shaken a lot of like what she has assumed about herself in the past, and I'm excited to see like where that takes her in the future. Like,
and we've tortured Zavala enough, you know. He needs a break.
Poor man.
He needs a nap.
He's been through a lot for sure. A random question: how difficult was it for you as a narrative team together? Like, if you sat around the round table or the square table, and you're like picking which characters to involve in this very 9-centric expansion, because there are a lot of characters who obviously, I would say, have equally, like, each have a piece of this pie that is the 9.
Yeah.
So how in the world did you decide to go with who you went with for this story?
Okay, so there are a couple reasons. I think, first of all, just as a general note, like when we're talking about characters that we want to use in the release, that's one of the first things that we kind of lock down, because it dictates a lot of other points in the story. And normally it's a pretty wide discussion about like who would be the most interesting in this situation. And then once you get a long list of who's the most interesting or who's the most connected to this situation, so in this case, the 9 coming back and starting this new saga, you start to break down like, okay, well, who is an expert at what? Do we have 3 experts in the same thing? We don't need all of them. You're gonna pick one. It would be great to have Eris and Mara and like all of these people who are connected to the 9. But do you really need Eris and Mara talking about them and Orin talking about them? Probably not. And it also kind of brings up a challenge that we tried to figure out, where since this is a new saga, we didn't want to spend an overabundance of time like re-explaining who these characters were. And I think characters like Mara and Eris actually bring a lot of baggage, where you have to like talk about where they're from. You can't just be like, oh, here's this blue alien lady. She's a queen. Okay, we're gonna move forward. But Orin, especially because her position in the story changed, gives us a lot of ability to kind of leave her old self behind and use it as a sounding board. And then Ikora, we always like to have some member of Vanguard representation in these major releases, as like a through line for these characters. And we felt that Ikora was her moment. And like Hannah talked about before, there were a lot of reasons why we wanted to bring Ikora in. And then for Lodi, I think Lodi was the most important piece. We needed your everyman character who could explain these concepts or ask questions about these concepts that we knew that players would be asking, or especially new players would be asking. We have a philosophy. Okay, I'm going to share our inner philosophy names here. We have the Randy Caviar versus Danny Dorito philosophy.
What?
Randy Caviar is a person who knows all the lore. They've been playing the game for a while and they pay attention all the time. Your Danny Doritos are your people who run through the missions. They probably are like listening to music in the background or like watching YouTube on the side while a cinematic is playing. And maybe they don't track everything. And that's okay. We want both of those types of players to feel like they know what is going on as they play through the story. And so a lot of times when we're writing scripts, a lot of the writers are very well versed in the world of Destiny, and we'll get a script that's like, this is great for Randy Caviar. Does Danny Dorito understand what is happening here? And we'll have to Doritoize that script a little bit to bring it into line. So those are a scattering of random things that we consider for characters.
Yeah, I remember when Lodi showed up and it was just like, who's this dude? Like, this is the face. He has the face. He has the face of somebody who knows what Scrum is. Like, why is he here? But it really warmed up to him for sure. But yeah, being the information giver, that makes sense.
The reactions to him before anybody knew anything else about that was really funny, because everyone's like, he just looks like a guy. Like, why is my dad Destiny? And it's like, you're gonna be excited. I promise. You're gonna like this guy. You're gonna like this man, because he's gonna be charming and wonderful and perfect and all of the things that Lodi is, but also he makes these incomprehensible Eldritch horror beings comprehensible. He makes them fun to hang out with. Like, he brings an element to Destiny that we needed with this release. Like, when we talk about, we don't want to punish people for not being lore experts. We want to bring them along for this story, and to have a character who is both entertaining and charming and relatable to bridge that gap felt key to like explaining these concepts of, here's the thing, here's the planet, the planet, and why it thinks because other people think. Like, let's make it easy for everyone to understand.
Especially with a concept as complicated and confusing as the fourth dimension and beings that live within it and then interact with other dimensions, you definitely need a guy who can stand there and go, what is all that? What's the fourth dimension? And so our super high brain esoteric characters of Destiny can then give their highbrow explanation to our beautiful little Blorbo.
I think I love that most of all because this is the beginning of a new saga, and Lodi is a fantastic guide, not just for all of us as we're experimenting with very, very difficult to understand concepts like the fourth dimension and dark matter, but also new players get taken along for the ride, and that's an incredibly important decision. And Lodi has these perfect reactions to things that have been mundane for us for literally a decade if we've been playing this game for that long. I mean, I think one of my favorite moments, outside of the cutscenes, is definitely his crash out with Ikora being like, what do you mean nobody wrote down what happened? What do you mean we had a collapse? What do you mean there was an extinction level event? What do you mean there's been an apocalypse? And nobody bothered to write down the recipe for ceviche? What are you doing? Like, it's a fantastic moment. And it's, everybody who's new gets a lot out of a scene like that. And anybody who is a veteran still gets a lot, because it's just, whoa, we get to see so much out of this new character that suddenly is having what is frankly the most rational freak out that anyone has ever had in any kind of video game conversation.
Yeah,
Like he goes
100%.
from 0 like to 100 real quick with how he's made the emissary. But making him a linguist too is a really smart move, I think, because who better to communicate all of this
Yeah,
stuff to us?
And as far as like that 0 to 100 thing, like you have this man who is, in his own eyes, meant to be of service, right? That's like the thing that he thinks about himself. I am at my best when I am serving others, and he's brought forward into a situation where he knows nothing. He's told he can't go back, and so he immediately, his next course of action is obviously to go, okay, well, if that's tied off to me, how can I be of service? Like what can I serve here that will give me purpose, that will make me feel good about what I'm doing here? And in a lot of ways, it's kind of a coping mechanism. Like this dude just got ripped, hundreds of years into the future. As far as he knows, everyone he's ever known and loved is dead, and he needs something. It's like when someone close to you passes, or you have an event that causes you a lot of grief or sadness, and some people they just go back to work and they just work the whole day after that, and it's because they have to focus on something that isn't that horrible truth that they've just been faced with, and that's a lot of what Lodi's doing too.
Poor Blurbo. God bless him.
This poor man.
Going through it.
Yeah.
So I guess we probably do like maybe one more question. We had more stuff on the docket, but I think it's been just great, like taking questions from chat and then obviously getting to talk amongst ourselves. But maybe I'll throw it to our creators. Do any of you, abaddon.yt or Moonvald, have any questions that you'd like to ask Nikko or Hannah?
I guess like the main the main theme of this expansion is fate. How do you guys grapple like destiny and fate? Because Final Shape, that kind of ended off with Guardians make our own destiny in a way, and now here the Nine are challenging that by saying no, we control your fate. So to me, there's a difference between what destiny is and what fate is, and yeah.
Yeah, I'll start off super short, and then I want to hear what it has to say. But Guardians do make their own fate. Now, whether a 9 tells you that's true or not, it doesn't necessarily mean that that you don't make your own fate. I think one thing that we saw in the Edge of Fate is that the 9 were working around the Guardian's paracausality, not just the Guardian, but also the other light bearers, paracausality, and trying to find ways to get them into situations where they're at the proper endpoint without directly interacting with the light bearer. And a lot of that, at least in my mind, comes from this idea where if you make that light bearer aware that they are being manipulated and moving to a set point down the road, they can change it. They can just do something else because they have control over their fate. So the 9 do have to work kind of in the shadows when they are manipulating light bearers. There's a piece of dialogue that talks about it, I think, at the end of I can't remember the launch name. It's the mission with the 3 giant minotaurs in the assimilated easement, where you find the old collapse era computer afterwards, and they're talking about how like the 9 did all this stuff that the Vex couldn't do, but a lot of that has to do with just us being unaware of it. And I think as the saga goes on, you're going to see more light bearers try to push against maybe what the fate that the 9 are crafting for them.
It's got a very kind of quantum feel to it, where it's like it only works a certain way when it's observed, right?
Yeah.
Just to jump off of that, people, I think throughout Destiny's history, a lot of people have told the Guardian what they're going to do, what they think they're going to do. A lot of people have made those assumptions about the Guardian. And this, like Nikko said, this is the beginning of a saga. We're going to be told a lot about what we're going to do and our fate being controlled. And what the interesting part of that is what comes of it. Of like the moment you tell somebody, "Well, I think you're going to do this," they're going to be like, "No, you don't know what I'm going to do," and do something else. So the point of telling a story about fate is how the characters take their own agency and make that themselves. How they react to it and respond to it, and try to do it different, try to break it, try to align with it in ways that are unexpected. We want to use this the notion of fate as a way to show who everyone is, to show like who all of our characters are at their core. When we're talking about Ikora, like she was shown, you know, a fate from her previous life, that she was shown like Nella Davis's fate, and where she decides to take that is her own. It is her decision. Even though the Nine may know it, the other side of that coin is that the Nine have a lot of their own motivations, and they may know things, and they're choosing to interpret those things as the way that they want to. Everybody in Destiny, my favorite part of Destiny is that everybody in it has their own perspective on the universe, and they use that to really inform how they view the universe. Whether it's in lore, whether it's actually in BO, like there are so many different perspectives, and that fallibility means that the way that they talk to the Guardian, the way that they like you're the weapon, and the way that we're perceiving what they want out of us at that is all going to be different. And like playing with that throughout the rest of the saga is something that like I'm like so stoked to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that agency is always going to be like the question and the driving force.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see
I
how
wanna-
that develops, and like I think ultimately, you know, we still have our agency. I think there's a notion, and I'm seeing that we've just lost it, but I think we're going to show the Nine that no, we do make, you can't tell us what to do. We make our own fate, and I'm so excited
Guardians
to
make
see
their
this.
fate.
Yeah.
I want to tack three quick things onto this. So, based off of, or not based off of, but to support what Hannah was saying, you kind of see this at the end of Edge of Fate, where Ikora is like, "No, I'm me. We decide what we do," and that's her viewpoint, and that's the way that she's moving forward with. But Drifter is very much like,
Yeah.
"No, we're constantly trapped in this spider web of what the Nine are trying to do, and there's nothing that we can do to change that." He's not speaking objectively. That's just how he feels, right? And so these people are still human. They are still open to manipulation. And how do you manipulate a guardian who is like our player guardian? Well, maybe you tell them they're special. Maybe you tell them they're the weapon. Maybe you tell them they have an ultimate destiny that they need to fulfill.
Yeah, I like it because I think the Drifter he's kind of ended up like this Doctor Who / Raggedy Man kind of position that he's taken, and where he feels like the coils of time and everything else pretty much have he can't escape it. And I think a lot of his story
Chess
shows
piece symbolism.
right. He's always being placed, and he's like, "Oh no, whatever you think is you is actually a predetermined, calculated outcome that somebody's seen before and knows that you're going to end up exactly where they want you to end up."
Yeah. And I think that it's funny because the Drifter has been through so many experiences where his choices have directly influenced what has happened next. But he doesn't see it that way. He still sees himself as being like a passenger in life.
Oh, buddy.
Mm.
Poor guy.
That's a phenomenal starting question for that, by the way, Abaddon.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so we are at the top of the hour. I promised to keep things in check. But yeah, chat, please go ahead and give a huge thank you to Nikko and Hannah for joining us today, and for all our creators for being here, Byf and Abaddon and Moonvald. I hope that we get to do something like this again. There's never enough time.
I know.
But to be continued for sure. I think that's the good part about lore. Any final things that Nikko, Hannah, that you want to say to the community?
I would say thank you. Like, we the response to Edge of Fate has been really lovely to see. We worked really hard. We put our hearts into making something that was very wonderful and weird, and really trying to push into like these spaces that we haven't seen Destiny go into before, and to see that, like, to see people responding to that is really meaningful. So like all of your interest and your passion for this game really means a lot, and it feeds us. Like, it really is wonderful to see like this stuff, the response to Lodi, the response to like Ikora's arc here. It's been really exciting to see. So yeah, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for playing. We really appreciate y'all, and we see the love. We go online and we are seeing like the fan art and the joy in the Twitter in the Twitter feeds and stuff. Like, it's really nice. So yeah. Thank you again. It's really lovely. Nikko, sorry.
No. Yeah, I'm mirroring a lot of what you're saying there. Thank you so much, everybody, the people on this panel, and also the community and all the fans of Destiny. I mean, I love making this story, and I love seeing other people fall in love with the story that we're making. There's nothing more fulfilling than having content go out and watching people play through it and seeing them enjoy it. And it's wonderful. And so I hope that we can keep providing all of you with joy as you're playing through. And yeah, I mean, I would love to come back and do this again. I love having these conversations.
Same.
Yeah, this was
I
great.
could talk for you said like 6 hours. I could just do forever.
Oh yeah. I brought my Orin mohawk. I brought my Lodi shirt. We're here.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we got the Lodi shirts. We're in it.
So cool.
I may say this really briefly on behalf of everyone here. Thank you, Smart, for being the impetus, the prime mover behind putting all this together, by the way. Because seriously, it's a really cool thing that we have here in this moment, and it would not have happened if you had not first thought to go ahead and take the initiative. So big thank you to you too, Smart.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Big thank
Thanks
you.
very much. I appreciate that. That's really nice of you to say, Byf. Thank you. Abaddon, Moonvald, any final thoughts before we?
I have so many final thoughts, but I can't. I can't.
Have you
I can't
opened
do
a
that
Word
right now.
document already?
Maybe I might be rifling through some of my books. Yeah. This has been really good for me. So thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And chat. Remember, chat's holding you to some kind of content. 5 minutes here, or 10 minutes there, or 25 minutes after something.
Gotta try.
Abaddon, any final words?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you, Hannah and Nikko, for being a part of this. And I guess I'm excited to see where the story continues with Ashen Iron and Renegades, because that's we see that in a week and a half, right? That's when the reveal is, if I remember that correctly.
Yeah, Ashen Iron's coming soon, and the Renegades reveal's coming soon.
yeah.
I'm so excited for
I'm so
people to
hyped.
see what we did with Renegades.
It's crept up on us. I didn't realize it would be that fast. Like time has flown, so to speak. And
you were
We're going back to
dragged forward in
Borderlands.
the timeline, or
There's not enough time. There's not enough time to get through everything before the next big update. It's just like I'm still reading lore.
Yeah, me
I have
too.
like a whole day where I just sit down and read Destiny lore, and I feel like I make it through like 1 or 2 lore entries, 3 max, and I'm just like, okay, I need to do other things. But no, massive thank you to everybody tuning, being a part of this, and just big thank you to Bungie as well, and also Gamesite for helping to put all the pieces together behind the scenes. This is probably one of the biggest things I've organized to date. I hope everybody's enjoyed themselves, especially chat. Thank you all for being here. Stick around because I'm going to do some giveaways, but I will let our wonderful creators go so that they can do life and have dinner and all the things that they need to get done for the rest of the day. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, Hannah and Nikko. And yeah, we'll do this again for sure.
Can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank
Bye.
you for putting the time in. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right, they're all on. Be right back. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate you all, and yeah, have a good rest of the day. And
You too.
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's great.
I will say this quick little thing as well, Smart. I know I would kick myself on any kind of technical things when starting nonsense. Please don't. You did a great job. Like, seriously, this was a
Thank
really
you.
well
Appreciate
done
that.
panel, and like little bits and pieces in
The
that.
mistakes are
grand scheme of
minimal.
things, they don't
They're-
matter. Like, this was a
Literally.
good vibe. I really hope we get to do this again at some
Yeah.
point. Like, legitimately, I will happily say that if you put something together, you as long as I'm not completely indisposed and like literally away from my work desk, you have my attendance. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Yeah, no, we'll definitely do this again. I would love to make it like semi-regular. I don't know how regular would be feasible, but maybe like after big expansions at some point when things are like that little like cool off period, and then we could come back together and just talk about what's been done. Would definitely love to have both yourself, Hannah, and Nikko back again, and don't know, maybe additional people from the narrative team could join us, who maybe haven't had a chance to be seen and talk about their work and just like all the great stuff that you and the team do together.
The
Yeah,
writers
sounds
were
fun.
shy, but we'll
Yeah,
get.
all
We'll
right.
see if we can
Well-
get everybody to come.
We'll ask people, but yeah, there are a
Okay.
lot of people on the team who don't necessarily want to be on camera or like out in the social media environment.
Understandable. It's a war zone
Mhm.
out there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to open myself up to that if I didn't have to. I get it.
Conveniently, she says.
Yeah. Why do you think I've been gone for so long? It's,
Yeah. It's
Moonvald,
funny.
yes.
I will give you a book reference for heresy if you'd like.
Yes. I
Something
want to know
that we
if
talked
I.
about.
go
Something
ahead,
we
sorry.
talked about a lot, especially with the idea of like the Hive and the Taken and these Taken rituals that were happening across the Dreadnought. There's a book called Liber Null and Psychonaut. It's actually two books mushed together, and it's about like Western philosophy and chaos magic. And there's
Well, how about
a
this?
lot in there.
I remember when I don't know. Does Dima still work there? Goryanov, your visual, one of your visual designers.
I think he does. Yeah. I
Whatever.
haven't talked to Demon in a while, but
He sent me on, like, not him, but he released a mood board of like images, and he sent me down a rabbit hole trying to learn about like chaos theory and stuff. And I just the places I have gone, but yeah, I will definitely pick those up. I have heard of them. Not super into chaos magic, but definitely interesting.
Yeah, check that out.
But yeah, the last time I made anything was about, like I said, about Season of the Haunted.
oh yeah,
It was a good season.
I think
Yeah.
I remember that. That was one of the seasons that I worked on, and I think when you brought that up, I'm like, I vaguely remember this coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the amount of Carl Jung I never wanted to read, but ended up doing so because it was relevant. It's just really cool to see how referential everything is. Yeah. Well, thank you.
All right,
Yeah.
folks. Well, I'll let everybody go. I need to get back to this stream, do this giveaway that I promised. But yeah, this chat will be here. I won't get rid of it, so that we can organize stuff again. But yeah, thank you so much one more time, and I hope everybody has a good rest of the day.
Likewise.
Yeah.
You too.
Take care,
Thanks,
y'all.
everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Legitimately great time.
Bye.
Catch you guys soon.
See you.